Hello, everyone. Welcome to this mindset episode of Eat Blog Talk. As always, I'm so happy you're here. If you're listening on the podcast, consider coming over to YouTube. We are now offering YouTube videos for mindset episodes, and it's kind of fun just to see people in person. I always like to see what their background looks like and what their setup looks like and what they look like. So come over and say hello. In today's episode, we are going to talk about asking for things, making the bold ask. This is something that I've been really leaning into this summer. I love this topic, and I hope you do as well. So we'll start with just this simple fact that I've learned. What you want actually wants you back. I love this concept. What you want is waiting for you to ask for it. Bold asks can be directed at other people. Yes, they can also be directed at ourselves, and they can be directed at God or your higher power, whatever your source is. I am going to share with you two bold asks that I have put out recently, one to another person and one to a higher power. And both came back to me with answers that I think were really cool. So I'm going to tell you what the bold asks were, and then in a little bit, I'll tell you the outcome of those. So the first one came to me this summer when we were on our RV trip heading to Montana. As always, when driving, I listen to audiobooks or podcasts. This time I was listening to an audiobook written by Pat Flynn called Lean Learning. Great book. I highly recommend it. In his book, Pat was talking about this concept of what is your next bold move, and doing those things that are really kind of scary, but you know you need to do them. They feel aligned. And as I was listening to him talk, I was thinking, my next bold move is having you, Pat Flynn, be on my podcast. It was so weird. It just felt right. I knew it needed to happen. I actually have a direct connection to Pat. My business coach is good friends with him, and I've really never asked him for anything like that. Like, he has a lot of famous entrepreneur friends. I've never asked him for a connection because it just hasn't felt right. But this time I was thinking it just felt aligned and right. And I actually sat on it for a couple of weeks. I thought of it every day and knew I needed to make the ask, the bold ask, but it felt so scary. One day, I sat down at my computer and I just made myself send the email asking for a connection to Pat. Okay, I'll end there. I'll tell you how it ends in just a minute. That was my first bold ask. My second one was also at the beginning of July here in 2025. I was looking at our budget. We're taking some extra vacations this summer, so things just felt a little bit tight. And I wanted to be able to take the rest of the vacations that we had planned this summer. So in my mind, I was thinking it would just be nice if we had, I don't know, $3,000 extra dollars in July. So instead of just letting that swim around in my head, I decided to speak it out loud and make the bold ask out to the universe, out to God, out to the source that gives us our money in the first place. So that was my ask. And I'm actually, if you are watching on YouTube, I'm going to show you the exact Post-it note that I wrote on. And I wrote on this Post-it note and said this out loud. It says, $3,000. Stranger things have happened and they're about to happen again. So there it is. I set it here, right below my monitor, and I just put the ask out, kind of walked away from it, didn't think much of it. That is bold ask number 2. I will come back to finishing that story in just a bit. Sometimes I think the most powerful thing we can do is put the ask out, and not just casually, not just loosely in our minds in a cloudy way, but really boldly, clearly, and loudly. As I mentioned before, asking can feel really scary. Why is this? I think it's because it puts us in a position to be seen. That's how it felt for me asking for the connection with Pat. That feels scary. That means that I actually would need to show up and be me in front of a new person, a new audience. It also puts us in a position to be told no, or to feel like it's just too much, like we can't handle it. Our systems are on overload. It can reveal our desires, and that can feel really vulnerable. And this is where a lot of us get stuck, myself included. We don't want to move past this part of it because it just feels like too much. I can't handle that. My system isn't used to that. So I'm going to stop here. So here's what I found helpful this month to get past that. I had this idea after I made those 2 bold asks to create a bold ask list that I can tap into on the days when I'm feeling courageous, because I don't feel courageous every day. For some reason, for me, Fridays are my days where I feel bold. I don't know why that is. I've tried to analyze that. Maybe it's going into the weekend. I don't think people are going to be checking their emails, so it gives me a buffer of a few days. I don't know what the psychology is behind that, but Fridays are my days for boldness. So to have this bold ask list ready when I feel that surge of courage to tap into, I know what things I need to do. I know the asks I need to make and the emails I need to send, or the prayers I need to say, or whatever. So I would encourage you with this. Write a list out. What bold asks do you know you need to make? Who do you need to make them to? And keep that list handy for those moments when you do feel the courage. I so strongly believe that when we speak our desires out into the world, even if it's just us in a room and there's nobody else around, just saying them activates unseen forces. Opportunities start shifting, people start aligning, doors begin opening. Things are happening on the back end that we can't see, but we have to trust that they're happening. Asking is alignment, and it's so important to do it if we want to continue growing and we want great things in our lives. One of my favorite books that I've read recently is Ask by Mark Victor Hansen. I so highly recommend this book. It's just a reminder of everything we're talking about now. It is okay to ask for things. And he really dives into the topic and gives us some good ideas about what to ask for. What do we even need to ask for in the first place, and from who? Bold asks create energetic agreements. They are your signal to the universe that you are ready to receive whatever it is that you're asking for. So now I'll tell you about the outcome of my 2 bold asks. In July, I sent an email to my business coach to connect me with Pat Flynn. I really wanted to have him on my podcast. This felt so scary. That means I actually have to show up and talk to him, not just talk to him, but interview him. He is such a big name in the entrepreneurial space, and I felt intimidated. But I found the courage. I sent the email, and guess what? It was well received. My business coach said, absolutely, let me see if I can make something happen. So he sent a text, and there was a back and forth, and suddenly Pat Flynn's name is on my calendar to be on the podcast. So to be continued on that. If I never would have asked, this never would have happened. I wouldn't have just magically seen him show up on my scheduler. Regarding the $3,000 that I put out there, I put a specific number, but I didn't specify anything else. My bold ask was that a $3,000 blessing come into our lives in July. That was the extent of the details. So, like I showed you, I have this post-it note sitting here. My husband, Dan, was down here in my office doing a Zoom call one day. A tiny backstory is that we have been needing a second car for a long time. We found a person that lives just down the street from us who was selling an old used truck that would perfectly do the trick for what we needed. Dan and this guy had been going back and forth about price. It was listed at $3,800, but we saw that it was actually worth probably a little bit less than that. So before seeing my post-it note sitting here, Dan had offered this guy $3,000 for the truck. He accepted. He said yes. So when Dan saw the $3,000, he was like, that's really weird because we just agreed on getting a truck for $3,000. So he came upstairs and shared all of this with me. And I was blown away. I was like, no way, that's crazy. Because in my mind, I was thinking $3,000 was going to show up in my bank account. That's how I wanted it to show up personally. But that's not how it came back to us. Instead, a $3,000 blessing in the form of a truck came into our family. It showed up in a way I never could have predicted, but it showed up to the dollar as a huge blessing for us. Over and over, when I make a bold ask, it becomes a turning point, not because I force an outcome, but because I was willing to be seen, I was willing to make the ask, and I was willing to let it unfold in the perfect way. When you make the ask, it doesn't happen immediately, always. Sometimes it can. But the wheels begin to turn. Just have faith that things are working in the background, even though you can't see them. I put together 3 simple ways that you can put this in practice. Number 1 is the bold ask ritual. Write or speak your bold ask aloud every day for 7 days. Stand tall, speak it proudly, speak it loudly. Don't back down, have confidence in it. If it's aligned, speak it. Number 2, get specific. So instead of asking for more money or better opportunities or things like that, try, I don't know, a $10,000 check from an aligned brand by November 1st or whatever. Specificity sharpens the signal. And number 3, release the how. Don't micromanage the method or the way it's going to come to you. Your job is the what. The how is actually none of your business. You have to trust the timing, trust that the right people are going to be involved, trust the way it shows up is going to be absolutely perfect, even if it looks different than you imagined. I did not imagine that a $3,000 blessing was going to come in the form of a truck. I will leave you with this truth. You are worthy of what you ask for. You are already enough to receive it. And the moment you ask, the universe begins rearranging everything on your behalf. Here is an affirmation to end this episode with. I am worthy of what I ask for. I'm ready to receive. The universe is already rearranging for my highest good. And if you're a journaler, here are a couple prompts for you for today. What have I been afraid to ask for? That's a deep one. And if I knew the answer was yes, what would I ask for today? If you feel inclined, send me the answers to those questions. I'm always excited to hear from you guys and start a conversation. I hope you found value in this episode, and I hope you have a wonderful week filled with bold asks. I will see you next time.